Well,
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mayor Gerard. I'd like to welcome you all here today. And on behalf of Borough Council, I'd like to thank you for coming out. Now, you know, the main topic of discussion tonight is the budget for the borough. In my mind, the budget is the most important document an entity, a business, or government will develop. It shows the financial path they've chosen to achieve their aims. So it's a very important document, and I'm so glad to see you here to find out what's going on. We value transparency, and please, in the presentation, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to pose your question. And one thing I want to stress to you that this is a draft of the budget. It's not the final number. So I'd like to now at this time introduce you to Borough Council and the budget people. First of all, we have Larry Burns, Michelle Kresher, Jimmy Fagan, Jason Ferguson, and Rich Gerard. And then the borough staff, we have Manager Jamie Snyder, Assistant Manager Katie Vlahos, the Treasurer Diane Farrell, and Public Works Director Steve Burton. So first, I messed up your name. How did I do that?
it's okay, you're good.
I got the right one. Okay, so I will turn this meeting over then to the budget committee. And
Sure. Good evening, everyone. You have to switch the slides. Thank you. I'll just say next slide, if that works. So good evening, everyone. As Mayor Gerard said, I'm Manager Snyder. So we're here tonight. This will be our agenda. We're going to go over, I'll be reviewing 2024 financial overview, where we are year to date in our revenues and expenses. Steve Fickert will go over our 2024 projects overview. We'll highlight the utility replacement project on Broad Street and North Main Street, our ADA curb ramp replacement project, and our roadway resurfacing project. And then we'll move into our 2025 draft budget presentation, where we'll be going over expenses, revenues, and then Steve will end the night with our 2025 projects overview. I wanted to say this meeting seems formal, but it should be informal. It's the first time that we're taking a separate meeting to be going over the budget. If you have questions throughout the process, raise your hand and ask them. Like, we want to be here. We want to answer all your questions. If we want to walk through a specific topic or line item, we would all be happy to do that with you. So feel free to raise your hand. If anyone's attending on Zoom, you can use the question and answer Zoom feature. You can email the admin@hatfieldborough.com, or you can text 267-421-4753, and we'll get your questions read out loud, and then we'll be able to answer them. So next slide, and the following one. So starting off with our 2024 budget, this was the 2024 approved budget. We had revenues of $10,836 and expenditures of $10,740,000. The approved operating budget of $10.8 million reflects no increase to the 3.25 mil real estate tax. That includes fire, and no increase in electric and sewer rates. Next slide. To highlight our 2024 budget, this was just some revenues. Real estate transfer tax was $50,000, which was up from $40,000 in 2023. Our earned income tax, or our EIT, was $455,000, which was up from $425,000 in 2023. Our local service tax, or LST tax, was $45,000, up from $35,000 in 2023. Our sale of fixed assets was $25,000. We sold the old backhoe as we purchased a new one in 2024 and received budgeted $25,000 for that. And our real estate taxes, which includes no fire, which is the 0.25 mils, was revenue of $414,000. $915, and that was based on our 2024 assessed value for the borough. Next slide. Expense highlights in our 2024 budget. Police services were at $995,000. Police services for 2024 were up from $945,000. We have a current agreement through 2026 with set increases of $50,000 per year. Borough Council allocated for the first time VMSC funding at $15,000. They did ask for $24,000. Council had evaluated this and said that 15 was a good start to be contributing to VMSC. Equipment purchase of $67,000. That was the backhoe that we purchased, and we have that payment for 3 years. I believe that payment is more like $61,000 and some change, but we estimated it to be $67,000 when we passed the budget in 2024. Capital construction costs in 2024, we allocated $100,000 for pole replacement. As there were 7 reg tagged poles in the borough. Steve will go over what that means a little bit later in the presentation. Capital equipment purchases of $10,500 for meters and infrared cameras for the electric system. Sewer repairs of $9,000, which was down from $25,000 in 2023. Televising our mains as we have done in previous years at $15,500. The big ticket item of the PA H2O small water for $2.8 million for the utility project that's currently going on. We did curb ramp project estimated for $20,000. And inlet and manhole repair for $20,000, same as 2023. Capital construction of roadway resurfacing project, as we call it, for $158,500. And our debt payment of $542,000 and change for our 2020 and 2021 A and B notes. Year to date through September, our revenues are at $7,105,000, which is 65%, and our expenses are $6,737,000, which is 62%. Always like that our revenues are higher than our expenses. The reason they're only in the 60s to highlight is when we budgeted in 2024, we did budget the utility replacement project. So we're not going to make a significant amount of those payments out of the 2024 budget. They'll be coming out of the 2025 budget, which is part of our borrowing debt as we borrowed money for that project. So that's why revenues and expenses year to date through September is roughly 65% to 62%. Next slide, please.
All right, my turn. Everybody loves my slides. They have lots of colorful pictures. So 2024 projects overview. Next slide, please. The Broad Street, North Main Street utility replacement projects, as I'm sure you've all been aware, this is all underway. The project was awarded to KBC Construction. The outline of the project, and I'm going to go in order of how they're doing the project. They're replacing the water main and services on West Broad Street. As soon as they're done that, expected by the end of this month, they're going to start working on the storm sewer, replacing all the storm sewer on West Broad Street. Once that's complete, they will jump over to North Main, and they're going to be replacing the sanitary sewer and storm sewer on North Main Street. Following that, they will be going over to East Broad Street, replacing all the storm sewer on East Broad. The progress they made so far, they've replaced all the water main on West Broad. So that portion is complete. They're currently, I would say, about 60 to 70% complete with the water services. Like I said, they're expecting, I just got notice today, they're expecting to, just prior to Thanksgiving, they're going to be starting on the storm sewer. So obviously they're expecting to complete the water portion by Thanksgiving of this year, of this month, actually. So as of right now, I think they're still kind of on track. They're still estimated for completion of June of 2025 for the entire project, all 3 roads. Next question, or next slide. The ADA curb ramp replacement, little toned down this year. We just did 3 ramps. We have a very nice shot of before and after. This is obviously in front of the post office for all the residents who know the area very well. We did West School in North Main, one ramp on that corner, and then we did 2 ramps at this location, the ramp you're looking at and the one across the street. This is going to be an ongoing project every year going forward. The project was awarded to Drumhauer Construction. We had budgeted $20,000 for the project. The bid came in actually under for the budgeted number at $17,655. So always good when they come in under. Next slide. And then the roadway resurfacing project that we completed this year was the lovely map that we can see above. The roads that were done were West School Street, J Drive, June Drive, and Jean Drive. Don't worry, I didn't hear that. James D. Morrissey was awarded the contract this year. We had budgeted $158,408 for the project. Once again, came in under budget at $132,642,000. Work has been completed. Everything, in my opinion, turned out very well. Heard a lot of compliments from a lot of residents in the area, how great everything turned out. So, next slide.
That's me.
That's you.
I'm back. Next slide. So we're going to get into talking about the 2025 draft proposed budget. I just want to highlight this is the draft budget as of November 8th. It is not the adopted budget. It is not the budget that Borough Council is proposing to be adopted. It does have some revenue increases that we will talk about. These revenue increases are not proposed by Borough Council at this time. They weren't voted on. It's just, we have to start somewhere. There have been significant expense increases this year, especially on the electric side that we'll get into later this evening. And we just have to put plugs in. We're trying, this is a work in progress. We're working through it. So we just kind of wanted to highlight that. So we're kind of on the same page when we kick off talking about revenues and expenses. Next slide. So we'll first talk about our expenses that were projected to incur in 2025 and what they were like in 2024 and how we can see this big difference. So to start off, these are just major expenses, some miscellaneous things. The debt service in 2024 was $542,471. In 2025, it's projected to be $560,000, which is an increase of $17,529. This increase is mostly due to the 2024 note A and B that we just approved to borrow for the utility project for Broad Street and North Main Street. Our contracted police services in 2024 were $995, and they jump in 2025 to $1,045,000. That's an increase of $50,000 from 2024 to 2025. Noted on the side is that our contract does end in 2026, and Hatfield Borough Council will have the opportunity to renegotiate that contract at that time for future services. Next is the police building debt, or if we want to talk about it as the pension contribution. So as you know, Hatfield Police is building a new police building. They do service Hatfield Borough. We are in the future going to be working with them to take on some debt of that building. It's very similar to when we upgraded the pool in Hatfield Township. Our residents get the same services that Hatfield Township residents get, and Hatfield Borough contributes $30,000 towards that debt for those services for the pool. Very similar for the police building, but we've run into an issue in 2025 where part of our contract for our police services benefits us when the pension does really good. So when the pension does good, we could possibly see a credit to our services. But when the pension isn't performing so well, we have to pay a portion of that. And unfortunately, the pension wasn't performing so well, and we have to pay as part of our contract a portion for that. So it's listed in the budget as police building debt because that's what it will be moving forward. But in 2025, it's going to go to the pension contribution for the police department. Purchase power, this is the big ticket item for 2025. As you can see, our cost to purchase power in 2024 was $1.7 million, and our cost to purchase power in 2025 is $2,257,000. That's an over $500,000 increase to purchase electricity to keep the lights on in Hatfield Borough. Chairman of the Utilities Committee, Rich Gerard, he will go into details about what this means and why this happened, but that's a huge difference in our expenses for 2025. Our liability insurance increased roughly $21,000. The reason for this was cybersecurity, and all of the Hatfield Borough properties, the majority of them are listed in a flood zone. So when we've had significant, not this year, but we have had in the past significant rainfall, more hurricanes and increased rain. And when you're in a flood zone, your liability takes on that. So our liability insurance has gone up, and cybersecurity is huge everywhere. Everybody's being hacked. We have to pay the fees for cybersecurity. So our increase was $21,000 difference from 24 to 25. Also listed on there is equipment purchase. As I spoke previously, in 2024, we purchased a backhoe for the Public Works Department at $61,729. We will continue those purchases in 2025 and 2026. So there was no increase, but it was a fairly large expense that we do have in our budget. So we wanted to highlight that. So right off the bat, not including anything such as any other benefits with different pension plans or legal services or consultant services, any of those fees, we were already looking at a $695,000 expense increase from 2024 moving into 2025. Next slide, please. So what Borough Council and specifically Budget, Finance, and Labor worked on over the past several months was just looking at how can we cut some expenses that are currently listed in the budget. So we started talking about road projects and line painting and ADA work, things that we tend to do every year. And can we cut some of those items? Can we put some of those items off until 2026? What's needed versus what is wanted at this time. So we started, which I call it version 4 of the budget. That's where we started. That's the first time that Budget, Finance, and Labor saw any type of budget outside of myself, Steve, and Diane, who work on it daily. So it's the first time that they saw this budget, and we were at $187,186 for these projects. We cut down an estimated $86,786 to end up with $100,400 for this line item. So we cut out line painting, ADA work. What we kept in the budget was a roadway resurfacing project that Steve will highlight later in the presentation. But other than that, there aren't any projects that are planned for Hatfield Borough for 2025. And the electric expense, we cut light bulbs, poles, trees, some stuff from our AMI, proposed pad mount transformers. So we started at $214,000, and after we made some expense cuts, we ended up at $86,928. We are still going to do some projects next year with electric. We still have money budgeted for poles. So we'll still be replacing some poles that are red tagged. Steve will talk about that later in the presentation. We will still be doing some upgraded work of our electric system. It just won't be to the capacity that we've done it in years past, especially this year with $100,000 budgeted for pole replacement. We're going to cut that back a little bit. Same when we look at the sewer department and expense cuts. We looked at inlets, manholes, our sanitary sewer, and televising mains. So when we first started, we were projecting we would spend $42,000 on those items. We cut down $23,000 of that, which gave us $19,000, which we ended up at with $19,000 savings. So we are still going to do some sewer work. We will not be televising mains. We tend to televise mains to prepare us for a project that we were going to do in the future. Well, we don't have any projects planned for 2025 because we're trying to really be careful of our expenses since we had such big increases. So we cut out televising. We're going to do minimal work on inlets and manholes. If we can replace some things this year, we will, which Steve will talk about. So we're trying to work through those numbers. Same with miscellaneous expense cuts. This included training for staff or training for council, wages, summer help, emergency management coordinator, legal, miscellaneous admin such as postage or copier leases, that type of thing. Same with miscellaneous public work such as tools or materials, along with the proposed EV charging station out back of our municipal complex. So we started at $168,000. We ended at $76,000, which was an estimated savings of $91,000. So right off the bat with expenses, with these specific items, we've gained $325,000 in the budget by just cutting some projects. It's not like the town's going to go to rest next year, so don't feel like nothing's going to happen. There's still going to be a lot of stuff going on. We have a very big project going on Broad Street and North Main Street, but these were just cuts that we felt we could make next year and maybe work back into the budget starting in 2026, being conscious of our increase in expenses. Next slide, please. Talking specifically about some expenses, just wanted to break down the debt service for Hatfield Borough. So in 2020 series note, we have a principal payment of $396,000, an interest payment of $30,000, which is a total of $426,000. For our 2021 series notes A and B, we have principal payments of $24,000 and $67,000, interest payments of $8,000 and $17,000, for a total for A and B of $116,000 in payments. Borough Council did authorize to pay back some of our debt earlier this year in April and May of a little over $1 million, and then again $93,000 to try to lower some of those payments moving forward. We took an option of spreading out that over the course of the loan. Instead of taking a big discount up front or a discount at the end, we spread it out evenly over the loan. In 2024, series notes A and B was for $2.9 million for the utility replacement project. 1.8 of that is grant funded, so we will be getting 1.8 of that back. So we'll be able to pay off that debt immediately. We're projected that project to end in June of 2025. So the A note is 3.645% rate, and the B note is 3.70, and that's the variable rate on the short-term loan of the 1.8 million. So our total needed for 2025 would be $560,000. That's estimated at this time, obviously based on a 3.7% variable rate. If that stays that way, that's what our amortization schedule will stay at, but I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't guarantee that. We're waiting for our schedule from Calhoun Baker, who we should receive that shortly. Also in our debt is $99,000, which is a repayment for the AMI system at 4%. What this is previous council had installed an AMI system in Hatfield Borough, and we took the money from ourselves. We have money in investments, and being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, Borough Council had decided that though they wanted to take their money from investments, they wanted to pay themselves back. Just because we have the money, we didn't want to be frivolous with spending the money, so we wanted to put it back into our pockets. So we continue to pay ourselves back at an estimated $99,000 a year. If you look at our bill list, it's around $8,000 a month. That will pay off the AMI system for Hatfield Borough. The current Borough Council is going to continue that and pay the 4% back for the $99,000. Because earlier this year, we did borrow from our investments to make some principal payments for our debt. Just taxes and money wasn't really lining up in May. So we borrowed money from ourselves, and this Borough Council passed a resolution that they will continue to pay themselves back, moving forward, being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. Next slide, please. As mentioned previously, with expenses Hatfield Borough is in a contract through 2026 with the Hatfield Police Department. These are our numbers: 2024, 995, 2025, 1,045,000, and 2026, 1,095,000, which is an annual increase of $50,000. Next slide. I will pass to Vice President Gerard.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everybody. Hatfield Borough is one of 35 boroughs in Pennsylvania that purchases power wholesale and distributes it to their customers within their borough boundaries through their own system. By owning and operating their own electrical systems, these boroughs aim to provide reliable and competitively priced electricity to all their residents, while also generating economic benefits for their communities. This model of public power is relatively rare in the state of Pennsylvania, but allows these municipalities a degree of control over their electric supply and distribution. Next slide, please. Power purchases. Our power purchases through PJM rose from 1.7 million in 2024 to a projected 2.2 million in 2025. And this was due to the PJM, or the upcoming PJM capacity auction, which we'll be discussing shortly. Next slide, please. So exactly who is PJM? PJM, rather. PJM is a regional transmission organization, or RTO, that coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity in parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest. It ensures reliability, manages the electricity grid and facilities, competitive electricity markets across all of its territories, which includes parts of 13 states and also Washington, D.C. PJM plays a crucial role in balancing the supply and demand, planning for future infrastructure needs, and integrating renewable energy sources into the existing grid. Next slide, please. So, what is PJM's role in capacity? Capacity is I'm sorry, forget this. This is a brief history of the PJM auction. The PJM capacity auctions are traditionally held in May of each year and are designed to procure the capacity for a period covering June through May, 3 years into the future. For example, the auction takes place in May of 2020. It procures capacity for June 23 through May of 2024 time period. Next slide, please. So what is PJM's role in capacity? Capacity is a major portion of your monthly electric bill, which is handled through PJM. The capacity represents the total reliable amount of electricity that can be generated or imported into the PJM region to meet PJM's peak demand. The demand is the amount of electrical power required by customers at a given time. The demand can vary based on temperatures, the amount of draw by customers to PJM, and other factors that can vary the load. Next slide, please. So, why did this capacity situation happen? Load growth, and specifically there was an uptick in load from various data centers that have opened up over the past few years. Also, retirements of older and coal-fired power plants, and also there's a future uncertainty of auctions going forward. And next slide, please. So how does this impact Hatfield Borough and other municipalities? The increase in capacity costs will impact all customers in the PJM network to an unexpected degree, including municipal utilities, electric cooperatives, and traditional utilities such as PPL, PECO, etc. For Hatfield Borough, this will have a major impact. There are four components to your electric bill. Number one is energy, and that is the purchase of raw power involving various organizations such as NYPA, APEC, NextEra, and the Peaky Project, and various wind, solar, hydro, and other sources. The second item is the capacity charges themselves. Capacity costs are the fees associated with moving electricity through the main grid. Capacity is the insurance of having adequate electric supply available during peak demand hours in the main electrical system. The third item is the transmission charges. Transmission charges are the fees associated with moving electricity through the main grid. And transmission is the bulk movement of the electricity from a generating site such as a power plant, wind farm, or other power generating unit to an electrical substation like the one we have on East Lambert Street. The final item is the ancillary charges associated with that. These are other charges related to operations and billing, such as maintaining the borough's electrical equipment. So how does this impact Hatfield's borough's budget? Next slide, please. In short, Hatfield Borough's capacity charges in 2024 were $4.59 per megawatt hour, and in 2025, the possible capacity charge rate may jump to $16.47 per megawatt hour. This is an increase of $11.88 per megawatt hour, or more than a 35% increase. And the resulting impact on the 2025 budget is potentially tremendous. I'm going to pass that back to you, Jamie, for.
Great, thank you. I know that before I get into miscellaneous expenses, that capacity is a major issue for Hatfield Borough. It's a major kind of factor that we didn't plan for. Nobody projected it. Nobody thought that capacity was going to go from $2.2 billion to $14 billion that in the PJM network, and possibly looking at another $30 billion increase next year in capacity. This is something we need to keep an eye on that has a major impact for Hatfield Borough. As Vice President Gerard said, this doesn't only impact just Hatfield Borough. This impacts PP&L, this impacts PECO, this impacts electric cooperatives. So everybody is going to be paying this. It's not us as Hatfield Borough wanting to, get some more electricity or get some more, revenue. It's unfortunate that this happened. It's unfortunate that the auction was delayed so much and that these were the results, but it's something that everyone across the United States is facing. And it's just something that we have to, work through our budget and deal with. So it's unfortunate. It's definitely a big hit to Hatfield Borough and all the other municipalities. But if there was a way around it, we certainly could, but there is no way around it at this time. So next slide. Just highlighting just our miscellaneous expenses, property and liability, 61,000. They continue to increase, as I mentioned, due to cybersecurity and flood areas. Our equipment purchases, our roadway resurfacing that we're planning to do next year out of our liquid fuels account. Steve will highlight that later. And overall, our average budget expenses increased across the board, roughly 2.5% in all categories. Some a little bit higher, as you can tell. Property and liability was up $21,000 from last year, I believe, but that's 2.5% across the board. Next slide. So just stopping for a moment and pausing to see when we talked about expenses, if anyone had any specific questions in the audience or you see anything online before I move on to revenues. None? Okay. We'll move on and talk about revenues. So our revenues will include a discussion about EIT, our LST taxes, our real estate tax millage, our electric rates, a sewer EDU audit, and a rental inspection program. So we'll look at 2024 versus 2025 and see where those differences come in. So when we talk about revenue increases in 2024, we had budgeted $455,000 for EIT. In 2025, we're estimating $500,000 based on the numbers that we're seeing, which is a difference of $45,000. In LST, in 2024, we saw $45,000. In 2025, we're estimating 55 based on the numbers that we see, which is an increase of $10,000. If Hatfield Borough would enact a 1 mil real estate increase, again, I will say that it's not voted on. It's not what we're doing. We have to come up with solutions, and we want to be transparent about what those solutions could possibly look like for our residents. That would give Hatfield Borough $139,536. For electricity, again, if Hatfield Borough would raise electricity rates 1 cent, not saying that they are, but if they do, that would give Hatfield Borough $213,030. We performed a sewer EDU audit in Hatfield Borough, which is projected to give us $180,450. And we are talking about implementing a rental inspection program in Hatfield Borough starting in 2025, and that would give us $60,000 in revenue for a total of $648,000. Next slide. Please.
I'm pressing it, it's just not going.
Okay, we'll wait. It's technology. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. So this slide will talk about our EIT and our LST, kind of where we've been the last several years and why we're at the numbers we are for our projected budget for 2025. And you can see where the numbers are in 2022, how they move up in 2023, where we are at year to date in 2024, which was through October. We don't have the November numbers in. November tends to be a good month for us for EIT and LST, and where we are at in 2025 at the estimated revenue of $500,000 for EIT and $50,000 for LST. Again, I say every council meeting when we do these reports, budget, finance, and labor, we'll continue to monitor EIT and LST through November. As I just mentioned, November tends to be a good month for us. If we can make some adjustments to gain some revenue, we certainly will do that. We tend to be a little bit conservative with these numbers as they're just a projection. It's not guaranteed money. So we just have to wait and see what November shows for us, and we will adjust the budget accordingly. Next slide, please. So a real estate tax millage. This is how the taxes are broken down in Hatfield Borough. Estimated income on 139,536,410 valuation. That's our 2025 valuation that we just received from the county. So we break that down to show what any type of tax increase in Hatfield Borough would look like, what that revenue would look like for us. So with a 0.25 mil increase, I'll just give the first numbers. We're looking at a little over $34,000. With a half a mil increase, it's roughly 69,000 and change. With 0.75 mil increase, a little over $104,000. And if we would increase taxes 1 mil, that would generate $139,536 for Hatfield Borough. At the bottom, it breaks down where Hatfield Volunteer Fire Company receives 0.25 mils of our right now 3.25 mils, but that 0.25 basically comes into the fire fund and it goes out of the fire fund. So we don't include that in the overall revenue when we're doing our budget for the borough. Next slide, please. So what does a tax increase look like to the average borough resident? So on your left-hand side, you'll see an annual increase impact based on our 2024 valuation of the average home of $150,069. That's not what you can sell your house for. That's the valuation of the home. So I'm sure you can all get more for your house than $150,000 in the market. So at 3.25 mils on your annual Your annual bill would be for $489. This includes the fire tax as it's broken out on your tax bill, but you do pay it as one check. So it just was easier to include that for purposes so you can relate. Again, this is the average home. Your bill might be a little bit more, your bill might be a little bit less. So you can see as you go through for 3.5 mils, 3.75 mils, 4 mils, and 4.25 mils, that would be a 1 mil increase. It would be 4.25 mils. Your annual tax bill would be roughly $639, which is an average increase of $150 per year. You take the top number minus the 4.25 mils to get your average. Moving over to the right, the monthly increase impact based on the 2024 valuation, same numbers. We just took those numbers and divided it over 12 months. So kind of what you're looking at when you work through all those numbers based on, 3.5, 3.7, 4, and 4.25. For the average homeowner in Hatfield Borough, if taxes were raised 1 mil, your average bill would go up $13 a month. Of course, you don't pay taxes monthly, you pay them once a year, but just so you can see how it's broken out over that period of time, that's what that looks like to the average resident in Hatfield Borough, $13 a month. And that brings Hatfield Borough $139,536. Next slide. Question, yes.
Does Montgomery County does the valuation of the house?
Yes, Montgomery County does the evaluation, and it has not been, the evaluation formula hasn't been changed in many, many, many years. I think they were talking, Councilmember Gerard, weren't you talking about at one meeting that there was about how it hasn't changed in a while, and there was, I don't want to say legislation, there's talk that they were,
About doing
yes.
a possible increase.
in
I
income.
don't think it would be for this year, but starting probably in 2025.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it seems like.
Very off, yes, but those are the numbers that we have, so we work with. I did personally look at, we looked at our tax bills for the residents that work here and used this calculation. They were very similar. They were a little off because we just used the average home in the borough. But I feel like my home or Diane's home is pretty comparable to the average home in the borough. And I think mine was a little less than $13 increase. Hers was a little bit more than $13 increase. When we kind of took our numbers and what we pay just to see if the numbers worked out, because the valuation seems a little shy for the borough. Revenues for electric rates. So breaking down each electric category that we have, we tried to do, if Hatfield Borough were increased rates for electric 1 cent, what that would look like on your monthly bill, how much increase a resident or a business is looking at. So we chose all electric homes. So many homes in the borough, they have multiple sources of heat. Some are electric, some have oil, some have gas. We tried to use a home that was all electric because that's who it's going to really impact the most, especially in the summer and in the winter time. So for an average home, if your current bill is $319 with a 1 cent increase, you're looking at an additional $18 a month that you would be paying in your electric bill. For an all electric apartment, if your current bill is $161 and you'd be looking at an $8.50 increase monthly to your bill. If your electric bill, I will say, looks more like $161, that happens to be what mine looks like, and I live in the borough, I'm looking more at a $8 increase. So if your electric bill isn't close to $300 and you fit more into the 160, just because it says apartment, everybody for residential is based on the same rate, whether you're in a home or an apartment. So you can use which is comparable to your home to see the average of what your bill would increase with a 1 cent electric increase. Same when we're moving for light commercial, business A and business B, you'll see their current bill, and with a 1 cent increase, they could be at a $14 difference, or they could be at a $81 difference a month. For Hatfield Borough electric rates, if Hatfield Borough enacted a 1 cent increase across the board, it would generate $213,350 or $330 for Hatfield Borough. Next slide. Breaking down the other categories that we have, which is commercial G2 or commercial G3. These, when we talk about commercial properties, it's just the bigger the business. So all residential is based on the same rate, and it depends how much demand you have. And if you're based on a 3-phase, it's how you are billed. So talking about business A and business B, you can see the differences in their bill for their current bill, or if you would have a 1-cent increase. And same with the industrial users in the borough, what their current bill is a month versus what their monthly increase would be for both of those businesses in the industrial district. Next slide, please. So moving into the sewer EDU audit. So the sewer EDU audit results, we're looking at a 2-year implementation program. Hatfield Borough enacted an ordinance in 1989 that states that an EDU, which is an equivalent dwelling unit, it's the right from your sewer to go from your house to your system, for our system. You pay for that. Most residents have 1 EDU for their property. You've bought that, you pay for that quarterly on your bill. But it's calculated, an EDU is calculated by gallons per day. You divide that by 175. And in resolution 2022-41, the quarterly sewer EDU rate is $50 per EDU, but you have to pay a one-time capital contribution charge of $3,650 per EDU. So Hatfield Borough, we have not done an EDU study since I want to say 2014. We went in 2023 and into 2024, performed an EDU study on in Hatfield Borough through our engineer. And there were several properties that came back that were using way more EDUs than they're paying for. So Hatfield Borough has decided we are not back billing anybody. We're not asking for stuff that you used that you didn't pay for. We didn't do a study in a long time. We're just trying to set the record straight moving forward. So what that looks like is every resident or business that has needs to purchase more EDUs will be working through a 2-year payment plan with Hatfield Borough to purchase the additional EDUs at the $36.50 per EDU, and their quarterly sewer bill will be going up the $50 times the EDU that the EDU capacity that they need. So what that looks like for Hatfield Borough is how it's laid out in 25 and 26. We're estimating us getting $180,450 over the next 2 years. It's the one-time fee for every business or resident per their EDU that they need, plus the quarterly fees that will equal the $18,000. Residents and businesses have been starting to pay the quarterly fees as of the 3rd quarter in 2024, but we did not. Some EDUs are significant. Some people were $100,000 short on their EDUs to Hatfield Borough. So we, as Borough Council, was like, you can't hit somebody with $100,000 off the bat. We are working with them, and we have implemented a 2-year plan, which will bring in the revenue to Hatfield Borough that we were missing and catch everybody up. And this Borough Council has committed to doing an EDU audit moving forward every 5 years. So everybody will stay up and everyone will stay on track. We won't get behind. So that's what that revenue looks like for Hatfield Borough starting in 2025. Next slide, please. So currently, Hatfield Borough is talking about implementing a rental inspection program. This program will protect and promote the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizens and establish rights and obligations of owners and occupants relating to residential units in the borough, and it will encourage owners and occupants to maintain and improve the quality of life of rental housing within the borough. As a means to this end, the program will provide an inspection program, a registration program, and a licensing program for all residential units in Hatfield Borough. So the annual license registration fee will be paid. We will check exterior property maintenance, electrical, plumbing and heating, fire protection, and through this program, it will bring an additional $60,000 revenue to Hatfield Borough. I think over the last several years, more and more concerns are coming into the borough of the way rental properties are being maintained. and the owners that don't live in the borough, but they own property in the borough, and how those are being maintained, how they're, are they up to code? We only have the right now in Hatfield Borough to inspect for fire protection. So we have a fire safety program that we go into every rental unit, check for fire extinguishers, check for smoke detectors, but we currently don't check, do you have heat? Do you have a working cooking device? Is all your plumbing up to date? How does the exterior of your property look? We can only do so much with the tools we have now. And Borough Council has heard these concerns that have been coming in from the residents over the last several years. And we've been working with the Planning, Building and Zoning Committee, which Mr. Burns and Ms. Cresser sit on, and with our solicitor, and working really hard to get this rental inspection program up and running, to try to capture any blight that might be happening in the borough, to just try to make people be held accountable for the properties that they own in the borough, whether they live here or not. So currently Borough Council has seen at the last meeting an ordinance that would take our property maintenance code from 2003, which we currently use the 2003 code, up to 2021. And then at the next meeting or the first meeting in December, they will see the rental inspection program ordinance, which will outline everything that will be inspected, and we will have a public hearing. And if it's approved, we will enact this ordinance to start in 2025. I believe we will start in March of 2025, as if we enacted it in December, we wanted to give property owners fair notice of that this will be coming. These are the things that we're going to be looking for and checking. Everyone has to register in the borough if you rent a property in the borough. It doesn't matter if it's a single family home, twin, apartment. If you rent your property, it has to be registered, and there'll be certain expectations that have to be met based on the state code. It's nothing that we're going outside of what the state laws are. We're just bringing those into Hatfield Borough to keep people accountable for their properties.
Jamie,
Yeah,
what's the unit cost to the owner? Projected to be for that agreement?
was it 60?
Means.
The fees? 60, is that what it was?
For the application fee.
Yeah, I think it was, so I don't have the fee schedule on me. I believe it was 60 for the applicant, like for your right to rent in Hatfield Borough, $60 per unit. And then, or $60 once a year, and then your reinspection was $30. Like, so every time a tenant changes, you have to be reinspected, so that's $30. And then every 3 years, you have to automatically get reinspected, which is another $30. But I can provide you with the tentative fee schedule. It'll be on for adoption.
That 60,000 numbers, gross number, that doesn't.
Correct, yes. It was just an estimate based on what we would charge on how many rental units we had in the borough. So that's how we got the gross number. We took the number we were going to charge, times it by the rental inspection properties we have now that we charge for, because we charge 60 for fire safety for 40 and 60. So we're going to charge 60 for this. And we just took that number and times it by whatever the committee said for the fee, and we got the gross number. And I believe that we were very conservative, not saying in 2025, because it's the first year of the program. Are people going to pay? Are we going to have to go after people to pay? Fire safety, I think everybody is, they know it's coming in January. They pay it every year. They're just used to it. This is a new program. I believe the number was more 65 to 70,000 when we did the calculations. We put 60 in the budget, knowing that it's new. People are probably going to not really know what it is, be a little bit hesitant at first, and try to capture the money. So that's kind of what we did. I think we won't know for at least the first year, maybe the second year, what the real number is going to be. Like, we know for fire safety, we can expect $32,000 a year. We know because it's every year. It's the same.
Who's performing the inspections?
The code. CII.
Is that expensive?
It is, because we had talked about, they have gone over in their expenses. It's roughly $80,000 for the code department in here. And that's what they've been averaging in Hatfield Borough when they are here 2 times a week. And they have a gentleman doing fire safety inspections Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all day. So we had said with code, it would have to be a partnership moving forward of what that looks like with the rental inspections and the fire safety inspections. So we might have to say, Bob, who does the fire safety, we're only gonna do them on Tuesday and Thursday. Like Dan, who comes in, isn't gonna continue to be trying to be out there in the field Monday, Wednesday, Friday and pay for that. So I think we had a conversation with Bob just to try to work it out, because we didn't want to increase the number for code, because it's a big expense for us. But we knew that the first year for the rental inspection program was going to be a bigger year for inspections. Once it gets underway and you only inspect it, then that number goes down. Yeah.
Next slide. Next slide. So 2025 projects overview. You've heard a lot of numbers and things that are potential for next year. One thing that's not going to be changing is the public works and what we're doing and how we're going to continue to do projects. We are still going to continue with the roadway resurfacing as we do every year. Next year, sorry, the road names aren't on here. Next year, we're going to be doing North Main Street and what we call Little Broad, really West Broad. It's the section of West Broad between Talmenson Avenue and Route 463, behind Vinnie's Pizzarama. Those are the two roads we're really looking to do next year. These are going to be actually a joint project with Hatfield Township. Hatfield Township, as of now, I can't speak for them officially, but they're proposing to continue North Main Street, as they call it, Cow Path, going into Hatfield Township, all the way up to Township Line Road, the new connector route, to tie all that in to make that one smooth, continuous road. That's the plan. Once again, this is not all officially passed, but that's what we're looking to do for next year. Next slide, please. And as one thing that we've been doing for years now, and we're going to continue to do, is the sanitary sewer manhole replacements. The lovely picture on the left, which Larry, I will be dedicating that one to you once we get it out of the ground for the History Museum. It's the only one that I'm aware of in town. The old manholes that we have they're not great. A lot of them are 3-inch, they're tapered, you almost have to break them with a jackhammer to get them out of the ground. So when you have an emergency situation at 2 o'clock in the morning, when a sewer main is backed up, you don't really want to be having to break these out of the ground to access them to fix the problem. We're replacing them with newer, more up-to-date manhole frames and lids. They're watertight. They have rubber gasket inside to prevent any I&I from going in. All the bolts, the bolt down lids, they're all, rubber gasketed. They're pretty much 100% watertight. So anytime we've been doing a roadway resurfacing project, the public works crew has been going out there, replacing the frames, really just bringing them up to today's day and age standards. So that's another thing that's going to continue next year. We're going to be focusing on areas that are going to need attention going forward that we're already aware of, or problematic areas. Next slide. And the infamous utility poles. Once again, I will fight to the death of me to never let this go away. I can talk all day and night about the utility poles and the electric system, but it's been an ongoing issue. We've had pole replacements, we've had pole inspections being done in the past 2 years. We've had a numerous amount of poles getting red tagged, as in need to be replaced now. Unfortunately, with the amount that had been red tagged, there's no way to replace all of them immediately. So we're trying to strategically plan them out for every year, so many poles getting replaced, to get on a schedule to make sure that they're all going to get replaced in a timely manner and in accordance to importance. We want to make sure they all get done, and we want to make sure they're done in the appropriate manner and timing as well. Next slide is just another fun slide for poles. So bringing back some memories from a couple years ago. These were not poles that were bad as far as red tagged or rotting or anything. These were actually from vehicle accidents. Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis.
How many red tag poles do you have?
I want to say off the top of my head, about 60. Making that eye connection. Waiting for that next question. No? So like I said, we're continuing to monitor these and continue to replace these as we need to, like I said, as level of importance increases. I believe I'm wrapping it up with Q&A.
Yes, yes, you are. Well, I can.
Go ahead.
Okay, it was just now is time for a question and answer. If you didn't ask questions during it, it's just supposed to be more of a informal. If you have questions about the budget, you think you have ideas, we should look at different things. Like I said, it's a work in progress. We're not saying that anything that we presented tonight is what we are passing tomorrow. Borough Council is still going to continue to work hard to cut expenses and look at revenues and see how that equals out over the next couple weeks. We do have to have a balanced budget and passed by the regular meeting in December, technically the end of the year, but we like to do it so we don't have to schedule an emergency meeting over the holidays. So we will continue to work hard to make sure that that happens. If you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to answer them now. I checked, I don't see any on email or via text, but if you have any questions, we're up here to answer them. The rest of council, any questions?
Congratulations to the committee. First of all, thank you for many hours of work you put in to get to this point. We're all there, revision and version after version. I did see on the website when I looked at the detail line item, the sewer reserve for the sewer fund shows a transfer, I want to say 148,000, and you end up with a sizable positive number in that fund at the end. I would just suggest, instead of moving that EDU money into the sewer fund, keep it in the sewer reserve as an investment. I'm not sure why you need to show such a big positive number, net profit, so to speak, in that particular fund.
We will take that under advisement. When we first did the budget, I will just speak that the reason the transfer was there was because the sewer fund was short. So the original EDU, we were going to break it up over a third. So what we're going to do is a third over a 3-year period. So we transferred money, and it was EDUs that were coming in from potentially 43 Roosevelt, that's going to be under development, Hatfield Walk, 23 North Main Street, because we're projecting developments moving forward, not that that's passed, we're just projecting. And so we didn't clean up any of the transfers. We talked before this meeting, I talked to Jason that I'd really like to go back next week and clean up the transfers. The budget, to me, I didn't want to say looks dirty, but I did use that term, that the transfers need to be cleaned up. So we will certainly take that under advisement and put that back, because it just balances out overall. It doesn't matter what fund it's in, as long as we have enough to pay our HTMA bills and do our work. So thanks for bringing that up, and I certainly don't have any objections to that.
In case I don't make it to the official council budget review. I know I asked this last year. The 15,000 to volunteer medical service corps. They do a wonderful job. My only question is, are other communities contributing? And do we know what level? I know for the library, we always used to do it on number of residents for the borough. And this 15,000, obviously, they said they wanted 24, you cut them 15 a year ago, but just want to make sure that everybody's doing their fair share.
We don't have a specific calculation, which we're working towards as like a basic tax millage. So everyone would be fair across the board, like North Wales, Upper Gwynedd, Montgomery, everyone would pay their fair share. Yes, everybody is contributing, but you are correct that it is on different levels. Some municipalities are giving 100,000 plus, other municipalities are giving $15,000 or $13,000. It is definitely based on their calls, I will say, and what their board decided to give. But you are correct, when it was no really scientific number that was like, hey, everybody, this is your population, you should pay $1 per resident. And, so there was no formal calculation. I hope, and the group of managers hopes to get there one day. We just haven't been there. I think we generally average 1% of their calls in Hatfield Borough a month. So when you look at that number for 15,000, that's kind of where we're at.
We need them, so we gotta keep them down. I might need them, so.
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So can you review what the debt service was taken for?
Sure, yeah. I'm just going back to my slide so I can educatedly talk about it. Chief, no, I'm
trying.
Yeah, no, the 2020 note, series note was taken for, this borough building. The 2021 series notes A and B, they were taken for, the East Lincoln Avenue Bridge, the crosswalk that we are installing on West Broad Street and South Main Street, along with the purchase of a vehicle. And then the 2024 series notes is for the utility replacement project. So the reason the 2021 and 2024 are A and B is because we were projecting to pay a significant portion back. So we took short-term and long-term. Instead of just long-term and paying more, we took short and long for both 2021 and 2024 because you could pay some of it back when you got your grant funds. So yes.
All those projects were granted.
Correct, yes. The reason the 2021 A and B isn't fully paid off, like the short term, is because we had gotten 375,000 of that money that we borrowed was for the West Broad Street and South Main Street crosswalks with the mast arms. That project got pushed back because of COVID. We borrowed that money, and then we were doing the utility replacement project right now. And we're like, well, we're not going to put crosswalks over a road they're going to dig up. So we're waiting. That money's still sitting in the bank. It's in Harleysville Bank. It hasn't been touched. We expect it to go into the budget next year, but that project will be paid for out of that borrowing money. We still have it.
Proceeds for that project? Or
Correct, yes.
after project's done?
Correct, yep.
So maybe that. We'll go to the next question. Like, it looks like there's almost a little over $2 million in investment.
Correct.
So is there, obviously that's the borough savings, but is there a plan for that? Most of it's in electric. The electric investment account, but
Yeah, so there's an electric investment, a sewer managed, and a capital. There's 4 investment accounts that we have. Budget Finance and Labor has taken out some like T-notes or bonds to try to dive the interest rates. We've talked about going to Pliget. The money is there because we treat it as a rainy day fund. I don't want to call it anything but what it is. And the event that something happens, like this year, we weren't able to make our principal payments. We took the money from there instead of not having the money to pay for it. So when we allocate money for our budget, we never include that as hey, our budget's really $12 million because we have $2 million in revenues and investments. We kind of keep that separate, act like we don't have it. There have been times in the past to balance the budget. We have made a transfer from investment funds to balance the budget. That's not unusual. We've never, if we did that to balance the budget, we very rarely actually did use those funds that we needed because electric had been more than we had projected, or we had less expenses than we thought. Because as you know, this is just a projection.
so is that something that was considered to balance the budget this year or no?
Yeah, we did talk about making a transfer, and I had the conversation with both Jason and Rich about if we needed to balance the budget, we could take it and put it in there as I hate to call it a plug, but for lack of a better word, a plug to balance the budget. Yes, that's always an option on the table. We're really committed to cutting expenses and trying to do something without taking something from a rainy day fund that we may need someday.
You talked about the assessments. Having, handful of school board meetings, seems like they have a robust program to, I guess, contest the assessed values when sales go through. Does the borough do anything like that?
Yeah, when we send them to our solicitor and she does attend the meetings and like jump on that if if it's like a big contestment. The last one I'm familiar with was when Liberty Bell Square apartments sold. That was obviously a big assessment for the borough, and she attended those meetings. And as long as the school district basically attests them, then she'll jump on it and do that as well for the borough.
So you follow it?
Yep, yeah, we follow their lead. She basically, anytime they do it, she does it for us. She takes care of it.
And then the power capacity, I thought you mentioned, I don't know if it was a mistake, but I thought when you were describing that, you said possible increase. So is that an actual increase or is it?
It's, the increase that we've got figured in currently is possible. It may go up, it may go down. I don't expect it's going to go down too much if it goes down at all. But right now, since they haven't had the auction yet and the final figures haven't been tied in, the figure we're using is an estimate. So could go one way or the other.
When would that final number be realized?
That won't be until, I guess, the end of December.
The beginning of December, I have a meeting with AMP, American Municipal Power. They're coming in and we're going over our power purchase costs for 2025. So we should have a pretty locked in number by then, what that looks like in capacity rates and how that's going to impact our budget.
The big thing is with that's something that's totally out of our hands. We're at their mercy. And there's nothing we can do about it except complain.
And we have.
The last thing I had isn't really a question, it's just a general comment on the budget, looking through everything. I realize that a lot of work went into expenses and it's certainly an unpopular thing to do, but when I think looking at all that, one of the things to also look at is staff. And I know you said you cut some help wages for public works, but office staff and then, a borough the size, looking at terrible boroughs, Pendel, Bucks, Chalfont, Bucks, Well, Montgomery, that they all have, a lower office staff and, and I can't help but question, like we're paying $60,000 for, this consultant, which, in the last meeting, doing social media posts, essentially doing the work of what you would think your PIO would do. So again, I know it's unpopular. It's not, I'm not trying to slight any particular person, but.
I would say that I appreciate your comments and we certainly will take them under advisement when we are continuing to work through the budget. You can add something.
Yeah. No, I mean, and so what I was gonna say to add on to that is that, we've talked about, Owen, what you've mentioned, and right now we've kind of kept the status quo. We feel that the contribution that the employees make here is significant. As people who deal with the borough know that, they're very easy to deal with. The people here work here for the most part, live here too. So, they're residents as well. So, but to answer your question, yeah, we have thought about that and we've asked ourselves the question, do we want to do that? What's the impact to the borough, to the community here itself? So there were changes that have been made, reductions in costs was part of the savings. But for the most part, it's still relatively consistent with status quo. Right? And again, that's something that we did talk about.
Sorry.
No,
You
that's
guys-
what it's for.
Something when talk about capacity. Is there any concerns on transmission costs? That was more the hot topic for a number of years. Now, it sounds like it's back burner more than obviously capacity. We can't do anything about, as you commented. Any word on transmission?
No words specifically about transmission. The projection from last year to this year is a $5 increase on our bill, megawatt hour increase. That was consistent with 2023 to 2024, the rate increase of $5. So nothing crazy. I will say I predict that, because PP&L is dealing with the capacity issue as well, they're gonna just pass that on to the customer, which we are a customer of them, that I can see rates being increased again due to this down the line, like the trickle down effect of capacity at the IOU level, coming down to us. I was on the phone with Norm today, and we talked about, we don't know what transmission is going to look like in 2028 or what it's going to look like in 2027. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds that we're worried about capacity. Well, a couple years ago, it was transmission. So it just seems like a revolving door that something comes up and, we are thinking about it. It's just this kind of took the forefront this year, unfortunately.
How's the generator operation?
Full capacity. It has run. We have seen some savings. I think Hatfield's in a little bit better boat than some other people that haven't hosted a behind the meter generator, or they haven't bought into the PA peaking project. So we are a little bit better on that end, but it's only making a little bit of an impact versus, if we had more big generation on site to, cut our capacity costs, more plants, and they take years to build.
Yeah, I think to build on the, I think it's important because one of the questions we often get from residents is, why do we provide electricity? Why do we go to the hassle, right? And so, even with these capacity charge increases, realize that everyone's going to get the same increases, right? So whether you live in the borough, don't live in the borough, everyone's going to be getting these kind of increases. So, I think fortunately for the borough, the way we've always used electricity is, it keeps our taxes at a lower rate. And so it's an advantage for us to have it. So we want to continue that. But again, just to emphasize that everyone's going to be hit with these charges, whether you're PPG, PPL, everyone's going to be getting them. So we're no different than anybody else.
With the EDU audit, I'm assuming everybody that was impacted was already aware of that. Was that mostly like multifamily dwellings, or was there any single family dwelling, like residences that were affected?
There was one single family in the borough. Most of them were multifamily and commercial properties. And yeah, they were notified earlier this year, got a letter about their quarterly increase starting in the third quarter. And then they were aware that the big, one-time fee will come, but we promised we would do payment agreements with them. Anything else? Oh, sorry. Does anyone else have anything? Any council? Anybody?
Well, just to close again, like we said earlier, as emphasized, this is still a work in progress. We're not done yet. We still have some numbers to calculate to get in before we make the final assessments. But we are coming up on the time we'll advertise for it and start and put out the final numbers. But again, thank you guys for participating. Thank you for everyone online who's watching this. Getting involved and participating is important, and that's why we've always tried to have more transparency. This council has been more transparent than I think any council that I've been on before, so definitely want to continue that. And we encourage everyone's participation to come out and ask these kind of tough questions. So I want to thank Jamie and the team. They've done a great job. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this. As Mr. Wireman said, he's been part of this before. He knows, and so does Larry. Former council members, the amount of work and effort that goes into this, it's not an easy thing. And so I just want to thank Jamie and her team for all the work that they've done, and Diane. Like I said, it is a lot. So, but again, this isn't finalized. We're continuing to keep focusing on what's best for the residents. And we'll keep everyone updated here in the next couple of weeks as we bring this to a close.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
You all.